Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm grateful to this committee in considering the Stop Terror Financing and Tax Penalties on American Hostages Act. This crucial legislation supports American citizens who have experienced unimaginable hardship and comes at an important time as we near the one-year anniversary of Hamas's brutal attack on Israel. Some of the hostages mentioned are currently being wrongfully detained at the hands of designated terrorist groups like Hamas, and this legislation accordingly revokes tax-exempt status for organizations found to be supporting these terrorist groups. I want to take a moment to acknowledge my colleagues who have joined me in championing this effort, Representatives Dina Titus, David Kustoff, Brad Schneider. I also want to extend my sincere thanks to Chairman Smith, whose support has been instrumental in moving this legislation forward. The intent of this bill is simple. No American who has suffered the injustice of wrongful detention or hostage-taking by our adversaries should return home to face penalties from their own government. Yet under current tax law, individuals who have been held against their will can be subject to late tax payment penalties after returning home from captivity. This is an obvious flaw that only exacerbates the trauma of individuals and their families who have already faced extraordinary challenges. Imagine returning home after months or years of wrongful detention in a foreign country only to find that the Internal Revenue Service has imposed penalties against you for missed tax payments. Taxes that could not possibly have been paid while being held in confinement. Not only does this defy common sense, but it defies compassion. The Stop Terror Financing and Tax Penalties on American Hostages Act will ensure that American hostages, wrongful detainees, and their families are not further burdened with tax penalties for circumstances beyond their control. While I'm thankful that we are taking a pivotal step today to correct that injustice, we must continue to fight to secure the release of Americans being illegally held abroad, like Ryan Corbett, a husband and a father from Dansville, New York, who remains wrongfully detained by the Taliban. Ryan was wrongfully detained by the Taliban on August 10, 2022, after dedicating over a decade of his life to helping the Afghan people start self-sustaining local economies. To date, he has never been charged with a crime. Ryan is being held in a 9-by-9-foot basement cell without regular access to bathroom facilities, sunlight, or medical care. Ryan has had little contact with the outside world and only a few infrequent phone calls with his wonderful, beautiful, courageous wife, Anna, and his 3 children, Ketsia, Miriam, and Caleb. However, we know from these calls that his health is deteriorating quickly, and the situation is as dire as it has ever been after 2 years of detainment. I urge President Biden and Secretary Blink to do everything in their power to bring Ryan home and reunite Anna with her husband and their 3 wonderful children with their father, in addition to all of our Americans who are being held abroad and wrongfully detained. In closing, I just want to finally just thank my colleagues and urge them to support the Stop Terror Financing Tax Penalties on American Hostages Act. This is a critical step that will protect Americans returning home from captivity and provide much relief to those who have already suffered so much already. This bill sends a clear message that we stand by our fellow citizens who have endured unthinkable circumstances abroad. We will not penalize them for their ordeal, instead ensure that their return home is smooth, compassionate, and as just as possible. I look forward to working with Chairman Smith to ensure that this legislation reaches the full House floor for a vote. And I just want to say thank you to everyone for all your support, my colleagues, for this bipartisan legislation, and I urge everyone to support it and pass it. And thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.